Hi, welcome to Informatica Interview Questions and Answers. Today we are discussing interview questions on workflow. Okay, so here we see what is event and what are the tasks related to it. So the event can be any action or function that occurs in the flow. So events are two types that are event wait task and event raise task. So this event wait task waits until an event occurs. Once the event is triggered, this task, this task gets accomplished and assigned the next task. So this event wait task, what it does, it waits for an event occur. Then whenever the event is occurred, the event is triggered that task gets accomplished and assigns the next task. So next event raise task. The event raise task is triggers the specific event in the workflow. It triggers the specific event in the workflow. These both event wait and event raise task are jumping into the other path of the our workflow. Okay, next. What is predefined event and user defined event? Predefined events are system defined events, so which are defined by the Informatica that wait until the arrival of a specific file and at a specific location. It is also called as file watcher event. So we do have predefined events that are wait until the arrival of a specific file at a specific location. It is also called as file watcher event. The user defined events are created by the user to raise any time in the workflow once created. Okay, there are two differences of predefined event and user defined event. The predefined event, it waits until the arrival of a specific file at the specific location. The user defined event is it raise any time in the workflow. Okay, next. How many tools are there in a workflow manager? So there are four types of tools, that is task designer, task developer, workflow designer, and worklet designer. What is a workflow? A workflow is a bunch of instructions that communicates server about how to implement tasks. Any other tools for scheduling purpose other than workflow manager, PMCMD? Is there any other tools? Check. The tools like scheduling purpose other than workflow manager can be a third party tool like control M. Next, what do you mean by worklet? When the workflow tasks are grouped in a set, it is called as worklet. So a worklet is nothing but workflow tasks are grouped in a set. It's called as worklet, which is a reusable component. Workflow tasks include timer, decision, command, event wait, mail, session, link, assignment, control, and etc. What is Informatica Worklet? A worklet works as a maplet with the feature of reusability. The only difference is that we can apply worklet to any number of workflows in Informatica. Unlike maplet, worklet saves the logic and tasks at a single place to reuse. Worklet is much similar to the maplet and is defined as the group of tasks that can be either reusable or non-reusable at the workflow level. It can be added to as much number of workflows as required. With its reusability feature, much time is saved as reusable logic can be developed once and can be placed from where it can be reused. In the Informatica Power Center environment, maplets are considered as the most advantageous feature. Maplets are created in Maplet Designer and are a part of the designer tool. It basically contains a set of transformations that are designed to be reused in multiple mapping. Next question. What is Workflow Manager? It is a GUI based client. Sorry. It is a GUI based client which allows you to create following ETL objects, that is session, workflow, scheduler. Session. What is session? A session is a task that executes mapping. A session is created for each mapping. A session is created to provide runtime properties. A session is a set of instructions that tells ETL server to move the data from source to destination. What is worklet and types of worklets? A worklet is defined as group of related tasks. There are two types of worklet: reusable worklet, non-reusable worklet. Worklet expands and executes the task inside the workflow. A workflow which contains the worklet is known as parent workflow. The reusable worklet created using Worklet Designer tool can be assigned to multiple workflows. Non-reusable worklet created using Workflow Designer tool created specific to workflow. Next question. What is Workflow Monitor? It is a GUI based client application which allows use to monitor ETL objects running an ETL server, collect runtime statistics such as number of records extracted, number of records loaded, number of records rejected, fetch session log, throughput. Complete transformation can be accessed from Workflow Monitor. For every session, one log file is created. Scheduling a workflow. A schedule is an automation of running the workflow at a given date and time. There are two types of schedulers: reusable scheduler, non reusable scheduler. A reusable scheduler. A reusable scheduler can be assigned to multiple workflows. A non reusable scheduler. A non reusable scheduler is created specific to the workflow. A non reusable scheduler can be converted into a reusable scheduler. The following are the third party schedulers that are cron, which is Unix based scheduling process, Tivoli, Control M, Autosys, Tidal, WLM means work hard manager. 99% production people will do scheduling before we run the work manually. Before we run the workflow manually, through scheduling, we run workflow. This is called auto running and scheduling workflow. What is the difference between stop and abort option in workflow? When we issue the stop command on the executing session task, the integration service stops reading data from source. It continues processing, writing, and committing the data to targets. If the integration service cannot finish processing and committing data, we can issue the abort command. Okay. In contrast, abort command has a timed out period of 60 seconds. If the integration service cannot finish processing and committing data within the timeout period, it kills the DTM process and terminates the session. We can stop or abort task worklets within a workflow from the workflow monitor or control task in the workflow or from command task by using pmcmd stop or abort command. We can also call the abort function from mapping level. When we stop or abort a task, the integration service stops processing the task and any other task in the path of the stopped or aborted task. The integration service, however, continues processing concurrent tasks in the workflow. If the integration service cannot stop the task, we can abort the task. So the integration service aborts any workflow if the repository service processes shut down. Next question. Running Informatica workflow continuously. How to run a workflow continuously until a certain condition is met? So when we can schedule a workflow to run continuously, first of all, and a continuous workflow starts as soon as the integration service initializes. If we schedule a real-time session to run as a continuous workflow, the integration service starts the next run of the workflow as soon as it finishes the first. When the workflow stops, it restarts immediately. Alternatively, for normal batch scenario, we can create conditional continuous workflow as below. Suppose workflow bus contains the sessions that we want to run continuously until a certain condition is met before it stops. Maybe presence of a file or particular value of workflow variable, etc. So modify the workflow as start task followed by decision task, which evaluates a condition to be true or false. Based on this condition, the workflow will run or stop. Next, use the link task to link the business session for $decision dot condition equal to true. For the other part, use a command task for $decision dot condition equal to false. In the command task, create a command to call a dummy workflow using PMCMD functionality. Example: C colon Informatica powercenter server bin pmcmd dot exe start workflow hyphen sv is hyphen info repo. We have to give the space and we have to give is info repo 8x hyphen d domain underscore hp space hyphen u info underscore repo 8x hyphen p info repo hyphen f workflow folder and wf dummy. Next, create the dummy workflow name as wf dummy. Place a command task. Alter the start task within the command task. Put the pmcmd command as c colon informatica power center server bin pmcmd.exe start workflow sv and is info same repo 8x hyphen d domain hyphen SAURAVHP hyphen U info repo 8x hyphen P repo hyphen info hyphen repo 8x space hyphen F work folder space WF underscore bus. In this way, we can manage to run a workflow continuously. So the basic concept is to use two workflows and make them call each other. How do we send email from Informatica after the successful completion of one session? The email will contain the job name, session start time, and session end time in the message body. So in the for that, the first thing is to have mail utility configured in the Informatica server, that is Unix or Windows. After that, we will use Informatica email task. We can create a email task and call it in the session level on success email. Call it on the session level on success email. Here we can use Informatica pre-built variables like mapping name percentile m, comma session start time percentile b, etc. We cannot use mapping variable in workflow or session level. It's a local to mapping. Instead, we have to use workflow variable for this purpose. But we cannot pass the value of the mapping variable to the workflow variable directly from your mapping. Write the calculated value in some flat file using your mapping, say value.txt. Create a shell script, say mail.sh, to send second mail. Read the value from the value.txt into a variable in mail.sh. Use this variable in the body of the mail. Create CMD task in the workflow level. Call this a mail.sh in command task. Use this command task upstream for your actual session and to link it on its success. How can we send two separate emails after a successful session run? The problem is we cannot call two email tasks from one session, that is from session level on success email. So for the second email we can create another email task following the session using the link them using link task with execution condition as status equal to succeed. Like this we will give two mails. What is cold start in Informatica? In general terms, cold start means to start a program from the very beginning without being able to continue the processing that was occurring previously when the system was interrupted. With respect to Informatica, we can resume a stopped or failed real-time session. To resume a session, we must restart or recover the session. The integration service can recover the session automatically if you enable the session for automatic task recovery. When you restart a session, the integration service resumes the session based on the real time source. Depending on the real time source, it restarts the session with or without recovery. We can restart a task or workflow in a cold start mode. When you restart a task or workflow in cold start mode, the integration service discards the recovery in formation and restarts the task or workflow. For example, if a workflow failed in between and we don't want to recover data because we manually did all cleanup of data in the impacted target tables. If workflow recovery is enabled, then we can opt for cold start, which will skip recovery task. Cold start will remove all recovered data if any stored when session failed. When we restart a stopped or failed task or workflow that has recovery enabled in cold start mode, the integration service discards the recovery information and restarts the task or workflow. Cold start task, cold start workflow or cold start workflow from task commands can be executed from the workflow manager, workflow monitor, or PMCMD command line programs. If we restart a session in cold start mode, targets may receive duplicate rows. So avoid cold start and restart the session with recovery to prevent data duplication. So if recovery is not enabled in a session, then there is no difference between cold start and restart. Here we are having scenario implementation email. I have a list of 10 peoples in email after session failure. Can we edit the list of emails dynamically? I mean, can we add or delete email ID without touching the mapping? So we can parameterize the email user list and modify the values in parameter file. Use $PM success email user, comma, $PM failure email user. Also, you can use PMREP command to update the email task. So update email ID, email address, space hyphen D, folder name, hyphen S, session name, hyphen U, success email address, hyphen F, failure email address. You can create distribution list and use the DL in the session failure command. Whatsoever emails will be listed in the distribution list and will receive the email. Later on, you can add or remove the emails in DL depending upon your requirement. We know, next question. We know there are three options for success, for session recovery strategy: restart task, fail task, and continue running the workflow. Resume from last checkpoint whenever a session fails. How do we restart a workflow automatically without any manual intervention in the event of session failure? Select automatically recover terminated task option. Automatically recover terminated task option in workflow properties. Also, we can specify the maximum number of auto attempts in the workflow property, maximum automatic recovery attempts. What is the difference real time and continuous workflows? Real time workflow is XML message triggered workflow, whereas if any workflow which runs continuously using two workflows and command line arguments to call each other. How do we send a session failure mail with the workflow or session log as attachment? Design an Informatica email task to send email communication in the event of session failure and used email variable percentile %G to attach the corresponding session log. Email variables by using percentile %G to attach the session log, percentile %A to attach any file, absolute path needs to be given in angular brackets. Explain deadlock in Informatica and how do we resolve it. In database level, deadlock normally occurs when two concurrent user sessions are trying to apply DML command for same row in a table. Say for example, below you get executed user 1 and in session 1 update employee set department number equal to 20 where department number equal to 10. Before user 1 it commits the transaction, if user 2 from session 2 executes the same query as below, it causes deadlock error. Update employee set department equal 30, where department equal 10. In Informatica, normally deadlock occurs when two sessions are updating or deleting records from a table in parallel. Parallel insert is not a problem. One option to avoid deadlock to define is to identify those sessions and make them sequential. Make them sequential. So another option is to make use of the session level properties such as deadlock retry limits and deadlock recovery options. We have deadlock retry limits and deadlock recovery options. Busy percentage is given by okay,